부탁드립니다.
Thank you, and good afternoon, and I promise to keep to my time frame. I know how late it is. But before I say anything, I just want to say that I had the opportunity yesterday of going to the Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art and had an extraordinary visit, so I recommend it to everyone here. One of the great new contemporary art spaces in the world, not just in Korea. Congratulations. It's a pleasure to be having returned to Seoul now for my third visit, and it is an honor to have been asked to speak today at this important conference on Korean art. I'd like to express my gratitude at the very beginning to our friends and colleagues at the Korea Foundation for this unique invitation. Let's just see where this is. I selected the title of my talk, The Brooklyn Museum, Opening the Doors to Korean Art, for both literal and figurative reasons, which I will explain in my remarks to follow. Talking about opening the doors to Korean art at the Brooklyn Museum might be more appropriately reopening those doors. Though our actual front doors first opened in 1823 at our first building in downtown Brooklyn, today's Brooklyn Museum contains one of the nation's most comprehensive and wide-ranging collections, enhanced by a distinguished record of exhibition, scholarship, and particularly of service to the public. The museum's vast holdings of about 500,000 works of art span 5,000 years of human creativity from cultures in almost every corner of the globe. I'll refrain from calling ourselves encyclopedic in deference to one of my colleagues. We are internationally known for our comprehensive collection of ancient Egyptian art, generally considered to be among the highest quality in the world, which has been at the museum for over 100 years now. Visitors come from all over the world, particularly to study and enjoy these magnificent objects. We also have an unrivaled collection of the arts of the Americas, ranging from pre-Columbian objects, Spanish colonial painting, and Native American art and artifacts, to 19th and 20th century American painting, sculpture, and decorative objects. The Brooklyn Museum is also home to the Elizabeth A. Sackler Center for Feminist Art, which is dedicated to the study and exhibition of feminist art from all over the world and is the only curatorial center of its kind in the world. Our boldly designed and highly textured and multi-layered long-term installation drawn from one of the largest collections in the world of American painting, sculpture, and decorative arts, I skipped over that, works on paper and Native American art is entitled American Identities, A New Look. And our new and innovative introduction to the museum's collections called Connecting Cultures, A World in Brooklyn, is but one of several examples of ways that the museum is providing increased access, engagement, challenge, and interaction, and is at the educational forefront of American museums. With this exceptional collection available to the public, you're now perhaps wondering to whom I'm referring when I'm talking about opening our doors. Who composes the museum's audience? From its beginnings, the Brooklyn Museum was envisioned as an institution for everyone, for all the people of the independent city of Brooklyn and from all over the world, and to provide exposure to the great art of the centuries, making rare treasures previously available only to the very few available to the public. The Brooklyn Museum is unique in the United States today in the diversity of our audience, with respect to race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, educational background, and age. Over 40% of our current visitors are people of color, Asian, African American, and Latino, and the average age of our visitor is 35. These may not be unusual for countries outside the United States, but they're remarkable demographics for an American art museum. We are constantly considering the people we serve in addition to the art that we show in Brooklyn and beyond. And for that reason, we have developed a mission that centers upon our visitors, the people to whom we open these doors. It's on the screen, so I won't read it to you, but it is about the visitor and about their experience in the museum that we are particularly engaged. For an almost 200-year-old institution, Brooklyn's mission statement is a relatively new statement adopted almost a decade ago and fundamentally changes the traditional nature of museum mission statements, which often speak only to collecting, preserving, and exhibiting works of art. The public or the visitor is rarely mentioned in these statements. I'm proud that with the active participation of some of our most progressive trustees, I led the rearticulation of this mission, which reflected both our rapidly evolving visitor-centered commitment and our goals for the future. However, in discussing the adoption of this new mission statement over a decade ago, we were moved to understand that it is not the articulation of a new mission statement that is critical to an institution's evolving future. What is essential is that the new mission and related branding, positioning, and programming mirroring the life and soul of the institution is absorbed into the basic culture of that institution and then generously and genuinely shared with the individual visitor and with the community, both near and far. That is what I believe marked the beginning of a positive and fuller future for the Brooklyn Museum and for other cultural institutions that should choose to follow a similar path. Our current path builds upon our consideration of the past and how it actively relates to our current and future status and audience. The museum's desire to open its doors to Korean art is over a century old. The museum's long history of collecting and presenting the arts of Korea began when it first hired the anthropologist Stuart Kulin to be its first curator of ethnography in 1903. Kulin brought with him a deep interest in Korean culture, having already written a book on Korean games that remains the primary English language resource for information about recreation in 19th century Korea. Although Kulin's first collecting works for the museum focused on the artifacts of Native Americans, in 1909 he began a series of expeditions to Asia. He visited Korea in 1913 and 1914. One of the objects he collected during this visit is this case for an official seal of the State Council dating to the last half of the 18th century. Much like my own experiences here in Korea, during his travels, Kulin gained an appreciation for the aesthetics of both courtly and domestic artistic traditions in Korea. Upon his return to Brooklyn, he was able to acquire and continue to acquire extraordinary Korean works of art when they appeared from time to time in galleries and in auctions. Some of the most important of Kulin's purchases of Korean art for the museum are costumes. In 1927, he acquired a set of 5 wedding robes that we were able to conserve recently thanks to a generous grant from the National Research Institute for Cultural Heritage here. And in 1922, he purchased a helmet and military coat from a sale of the collection of the great American artist Lockwood DeForest. These items and 2 other helmets and coats are also currently undergoing conservation treatment thanks to another generous grant from the National Research Institute. Though Kulin set the stage for Brooklyn's interest in Korean art, the museum's most important Korean acquisition came after he left. In 1956, an important Celadon ewer from the Goryeo period was given to the museum by Mrs. Darwin James. Mrs. James was the niece of Horace and Lilias Underwood, American missionaries here in Korea who founded the Yonsei University in Seoul at the turn of the century. We don't know exactly the precise history of this ewer, but it seems likely from the documentation that we have that it was one of several gifts made to Mrs. Underwood by Queen Min in the late 19th century. With its delicate carving and restrained decoration, combined with clever use of lotus and butterfly motifs, this ewer is often considered one of the great examples of this period's ceramic artistry and one of the most admired works of Korean art in America. In 1961, the museum received its other Goryeo period masterpiece from Harold Henderson, a professor of Japanese studies at Columbia University. This painting of the Amida Buddha was first cataloged as Chinese, then as Japanese, a well-known problem in the study of Korean art. Then finally, in 1974, a visiting Korean scholar recognized it as a rare 14th century Korean painting. Another major change occurred in 1973 when Robert Mose took over as curator of Asian art. His area of expertise was Japanese art, but he clearly preferred the arts of Korea. Under Mo's leadership, the Brooklyn collection of Korean art grew rapidly, and he made several very important purchases, such as this lovely 15th century Bouchon ware bottle. But he also attracted a large number of gifts from collectors who were excited to find an institution that early in the 20th century that shared their interest in Korean art. Among the gifts in this period, let me see if there we go. Among the gifts in this period was this very sensitive portrait of the Joseon official Han Ik-mo, who served as prime minister in 1772. But perhaps the curator's most important contribution was the establishment of the Gallery of Korean Art at the museum in 1974. Brooklyn was the first museum in the continental United States to dedicate a permanent gallery space to display of Korean art, and second only to the Honolulu Academy. Because that initial gallery was relatively small, and because our collection had grown by then to include almost 800 works, the Brooklyn Museum initiated a large special exhibition of Brooklyn's Korean collection titled From the Land of the Morning Calm, Korean Art at the Brooklyn Museum. An important catalog, there we go, with highlights from the collection was published for that exhibition. Our commitment to Korean art has continued into the 21st century with select acquisitions of Korean modern and contemporary art, such as this dramatic 3-panel work made of buttons and pins by the artist Ran Huang, who has studios both in New York and in Seoul. And we're also planning a major exhibition of contemporary art acquisitions to open in concert with the opening of our new Asian galleries. In 2000, the National Research Institute for Cultural Heritage selected the Brooklyn Museum as the first American museum for its program of scholarly collection surveys. The catalog on the screen here of their findings was published in 2006. What was so important about this was that the research conducted by the teams of visiting scholars revealed a number of significant holdings not previously identified, leading to the important conservation projects that I mentioned earlier and many more. And armed with this better understanding of the wealth and breadth of our collection of Korean art, the museum is now in the midst of rebuilding and newly installing our new and much larger galleries of Korean art. This project is part of a major $20 million rebuilding, reconfiguration, and reinstallation of the museum's galleries for Asian and Islamic art. But the rearrangement of these galleries will allow us to roughly triple the amount of space dedicated to the arts of Korea. From the compact 1974 gallery I showed you earlier, the new Korean gallery will accommodate more than 4 times the number of objects that the old gallery housed. Still not enough to allow us to show all of our collection, but a great improvement. I'm showing you on the screen some architects' renderings of one part of the Asian galleries. These drawings do not include the casework or actual objects, but they should give you a sense of the breadth of the new spaces we'll offer. Not shown here is our introductory gallery dealing with the international transmission of culture and trade, which will look at export porcelains and artistic techniques throughout Asia and become a very important part of the educational introduction of all of our visitors to the arts of Asia and especially to Korea. With this expanded and much more beautiful space, we will be able to present a broader and also a more diverse view of the artistic heritage of Korea, including a very large collection of the arts of the late Joseon period. We expect more domestic and less elite objects to bring a different kind of energy into the gallery, reminding our visitors that art is not only the domain of court and temple. These objects tend to be more recently made, so their introduction also bridges the gap between the antique and the 19th and 20th centuries. We are excited to reveal the exceptional quality and diversity of Brooklyn's Korean collection to knowledgeable visitors such as yourselves, but we are equally excited to introduce the rich traditions of Korean art to completely uninitiated visitors. Using the many lessons that we have learned in decades of work at the forefront of museum education, interpretation, and particularly technology, Brooklyn will create an actively engaging presentation incorporating didactics and particularly interactive materials that will encourage visitors to look closely and to consider the objects from many points of view. One of Brooklyn's primary goals is to promote art as an aid to understanding the world around us. We see the Korean Gallery as an opportunity to open not only doors, but many new windows in Brooklyn that offer a clear and inspiring view of Korea. In addition to the greatly increased space for the new Korean galleries, our plans will allow for much easier access to these new galleries. This is made possible because of an addition of a magnificently designed new grand staircase that will lead directly, for the first time, for the ground floor entrance gallery, directly into the Asian galleries. Opening some of the walls that already separate the Asian galleries from the large exhibition gallery below will also raise the profile of all of our Asian galleries, allowing visitors to see the treasures that await them upstairs. As some of you may know, Brooklyn is renowned for its education and public programming, which is yet another way to introduce Korean art to our diverse visitors. Our education division provides comprehensive on-site educational programs that help to address the unfortunate gap in arts education in our public schools throughout New York City and indeed America. Our education division also offers exceptional youth and family programming that ensures that people from all backgrounds will have opportunities to be inspired by our new Korean art gallery and the other arts of Asia that they will see. The museum is also open late, and perhaps best known throughout the United States is our enormously popular and free First Saturday programming held on the first Saturday evening of every month. This program attracts from 10,000 to 20,000 visitors for each first Saturday evening. That's in just 5 hours. Throughout the Korean galleries, as I mentioned before, our intention is to provide a very elaborate interactive learning electric touch screens to actively engage visitors' feedback so staff can better understand how visitors are experiencing our installations. The museum has shown great foresight over the years when it comes to the creative utilization and integration of social media with installations and exhibitions to create a full program for visitor interaction with an exhibition or a new installation. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Flickr, and SMS test messaging are all used by the museum with great success. Having as young an audience as we do, these social media options are essential to the success of all of our programs for the Brooklyn Museum, and particularly new galleries such as the new Korean Gallery. Going beyond the walls of our own building, we recognize that the web audience is just as important as those visitors coming through our doors. Every virtual visitor has the potential to visit us in person in the future. And with nearly 100,000 object records now online, the museum's collection on the web is almost unparalleled in its documentation of one of the largest collections in the United States. Our Korean collection will soon have a larger audience as a result of our open approach to sharing our collection and the technology which has made it possible. This commitment on the part of the museum will bring knowledge of our extraordinary Korean objects to all corners of the world. We certainly look forward to sharing a larger portion of our important collection with the museum's many visitors. While some earlier initiatives, both at Brooklyn and other American museums, often targeted Korean Americans as the key audience for their Korean art galleries, we hope to target all of New York City's diverse population, as well as all the visitors to New York for our new Gallery of Korean Art. We look forward to introducing many generations of school children particularly, and their parents and families, to the sophistication and beauty of Korean art. Again, I want to thank the Korean Foundation, the National Museum of Korea, and the National Research Institute for Cultural Heritage for all the great support and friendship that they have shown to the Brooklyn Museum. And we look forward to greeting all of you in our new galleries when they open in about 2 years from now. Thank you very much.
이만 관장님 감사합니다. 자, 이렇게